Welcome to the Actually I Can Female Entrepreneur podcast. I am your host, Kaylee Greenacre, a business strategist, coach, TEDx speaker, author, and your go-to woman for all things business strategy. I am obsessed with supporting female entrepreneurs to grow unstoppable six and multi-six-figure businesses that they love, giving them the freedom and life that they desire. During this podcast, I'll be sharing with you everything that you need to become a successful female entrepreneur, from the mindset shifts to sales and marketing strategies, and how to become an iconic leader that people can't get enough of. It is my mission to help you stand out, attract your dream clients and customers, and sell out of your offers with ease whilst building the business and life of your dreams. Let's make this your reality, ladies. Hello, ladies, and welcome to another episode of Actually I Can, the Female Entrepreneur Podcast. And I'm joined today by the fabulous Laura Perkes, who is a PR strategist. And in today's episode, we are going to be diving into being the best kept secret and turning into already chosen. Now, I'm really, really excited to welcome Laura here today. Laura, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
No, I love this. I live and breathe this. It's part of PR strategy. So podcasts are very much my jam.
Yes, amazing. Right. Let's first of all share with our listeners a little bit about you and your journey.
Okay. So I have always worked in public relations. It's what I studied at university. So I've been in the industry for 22 years. And I have seen it just change beyond all recognition. Like when I first started working in PR, social media didn't exist. Like people were barely using the internet. Do you know what I mean? It makes me feel ancient. And for me, it's almost like PR hasn't died. It's evolved because it now covers social media and marketing in a different way and edutainment. And for me, it all comes back to PR because it's all you communicating to your ideal customers and clients. It's all about how you're showing up. So the platforms then become the vehicle. But for me, everything comes back to PR. It's you communicating your message to those people who really need to hear it.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your journey. And ultimately, I can't believe 22 years. Wow. That's incredible. Incredible. So let's dive into this topic because I know that there will be listeners listening to this podcast that want to be chosen, daily by their ideal clients, and being the best kept secret is not what we want. So let's talk about this. So many brilliant female entrepreneurs, or business owners, they are incredibly talented, but they still feel and even potentially come across as the best kept secret in their industry. So why do you actually think this is happening right now?
I think it's more a case of social media is very loud and it's very noisy. And I think the algorithm can often keep showing us the same people or similar content. And therefore, we just naturally believe my voice isn't being heard. My message isn't getting out there. And you can feel like a best kept secret because you're not known. You're not like celebrity famous. You're not being papped when you're walking down the road. You're not being invited to all these like glamorous events and parties. And you are very well known within your inner circle. You know, you've got clients who love you. You've got people who are going to champion you all day long. But outside of that inner circle, you do feel like you are unknown. You feel like the best kept secret. So I don't think it's actually a reflection of who you are as a person, the work that you're delivering, the transformations that you are helping your clients achieve. It's more a case of what have you done to put yourself in front of more of those people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what level you're at. You know, I've worked with like multi-seven-figure business owners who come to me and say, I feel like a best kept secret. And it's like, it's okay, girl, I've got you.
Absolutely. Laura is the person to go to if you're feeling like you're a secret.
But yeah, I think this is so important, isn't it? And it is noisy as well. You know, you're talking about the online space is noisy, it's busy, it's loud. People are loud. And especially for any of our listeners, if you're an introvert like me, you know, it's not in our nature to be loud and to you know, and to feel like we want to dominate. This is more about again making sure that we're strategizing and leaning into the tools and the expertise and actually allowing people to get to know us. So let's dive into and talk about this concept or this buzzword. I say the buzzword, I know this because of you. Niche famous. What does this
Yeah.
mean? What does
Yeah.
niche famous mean?
I'm gonna start with a story because over the years, whenever I've worked with female entrepreneurs, some of them have expressly said, I don't want to be famous, but I want to be known for what I do.
Okay.
And last year, when I started working with my mentor, she was the one who said, but they want to be niche famous. And I was like, oh, I don't know, but that word famous, I don't want it to repel the very people I want to work with. And,
Mm.
and she was almost like, but they want to be niche famous. They want to be known for what they do. They want to be known in their niche. Therefore, niche famous just wraps it up in a box in a beautiful bow. And I'm like, actually, yeah, you're right. And essentially, it's when you're not in a room, people are talking about you, people are referring you to their network, their connections. It's when people ask for somebody on Facebook and your name is the one that keeps getting repeated in the comments.
Yeah.
That for me is niche famous. It's when your reputation walks into the room before you do.
Nice. So the reputation, having your name basically at the top of their mind when thinking, oh, that's the person. Yeah, okay, perfect. So we're understanding this concept of niche famous. And I like that. I like it because, yeah, absolutely. When people say they want to be known in the industry, become that authority. I feel like this fits really, really nicely without it being too much and too loud and too, you know, too overpowering as such. But this is great. And I do think that, you know, in the online space at the moment, a lot of people do just focus on social media in terms of visibility. Like this must irritate you so much actually as a PR strategist. But I see it as a business strategist. I'm like, what else are you utilizing? What else are you doing other than Instagram? And
Mm.
the amount of times that actually when I have these initial conversations, there's not a lot else in that strategy. So it's really, really good to kind of open up the door and opportunities, right? So why do you believe that PR is such an important missing piece in building real authority and to
Mm.
become niche famous?
Of course. So I'm going to set the scene. Back in the
Mm,
day, the late 90s and the early 2000s, before social media existed and before people were really using the internet, there were
yeah.
really only three channels that you could use, which was TV, radio, and print. And the only way that any business could get onto TV, radio, or in print was through a PR agency because the PR agency had the connections, they had the contacts, they had the relationships with the journalists, the producers, the key decision makers. And if a brand or a personal brand wanted to get into the press, they had to use a PR agency. And it was seen as it was a status. If you were featured in Vogue or if you were in GQ or if you were on This Morning, you were seen as someone who had the authority. You had a story that people needed to hear. You had expertise that needed to be heard. And I don't think PR has changed in that respect. I think it very much still drives that credibility. And
Mm,
I remember at the last agency I worked at, which bearing in mind, I left in 2013 to set up PR with Perks in its former name. Um, Clients didn't want to be featured online because they didn't have anything tangible to hold or anything tangible to show off. Because for them, they wanted their coverage to be on the wall in, uh,
yes.
in, in picture frames. They wanted the magazines to be open on the coffee table. So when their suppliers or their potential customers and clients came into the office, the first thing they saw was the wall of PR or the gorgeous coffee table with the magazines that people could pick up and they could turn the pages, and it was a real kind of sensory experience. that they were like, no, we don't want online coverage. Well, now because of how the print industry is gone, everything now is online first. And as a business owner, I understand it increases your digital footprint. It helps with SEO, GEO, coming up in kind of AI searches. And then you get the click back to your website. So you can then track what leads are coming into your business. So for me, print was always king. And it was great to be on TV and radio in the moment, but it was difficult to then share it. Because don't forget, there was no social media. There was no link to share with anybody else.
Share it afterwards. No.
So now, yes, we've got social media channels, which I think are fantastic at building your network, building an audience, getting feedback, putting polls up. It's way more interactive. Like PR is very kind of faceless. So social is almost like that's where you really kind of get to build those relationships and nurture them. But now we've got podcasts, we've got YouTube, we've got TikTok. There are other ways of you showing up and getting in front of somebody else's audience in the same way that PR did back in the day for TV, radio, and print. So it's the same foundation, it's the same principle. It's just we now have more options and they're more accessible because as editorial teams have gotten smaller in size, it's getting harder for people to then be featured in the press. So it might be easier to start with niche podcasts and get your name out there that way, but then have a few of those kind of like what I'll call traditional PR pieces to just underpin the work, because being featured in Harper's Bazaar or Vogue or Elle or Women's Health, it still holds that credibility. It still puts you up there. And in a world where so many of us are doing something similar, it's those pieces that are going to help you stand out in a crowded marketplace.
Yeah. Do you know what's really interesting? You bringing back historically. In terms of the print, the TV, the film, so my background, a lot of listeners know this. So I used to work in TV and film, and I used to work for Heart Radio actually back in the day. Heart Radio under Global, and I used to be what was my title? The advertising, sponsorship, and something else account manager. So I basically used to help people get seen and heard, but through advertising. So it's a little bit different than sponsorships. But it was fascinating. It's really, really interesting as well, because when I used to do a lot of the TV work and the interviews and the film work, and I remember working with MTV, and I got to interview JoJo, the singer JoJo. If anyone grew up with the whole Leave, Get Out song, JoJo, she was amazing. And I managed to interview her. And it was incredible. I said, I want to capture this moment and I want to be able to share it with my mum. And I remember asking JoJo, can we just have a picture? And we took a picture on my phone at the time. And that was my fundamental moment. But other than that, the interview went out, but there was no other way that you could kind of keep that and share it. And I think it's so interesting how things have changed, but actually how many other opportunities there are now to get visible, to be seen. And PR is massive. I do think people don't realize how powerful the PR route actually is. And PR doesn't just mean magazines and newspapers, right? In terms of print, there are so many avenues. You talk about podcasts, you talk about, obviously you talked about YouTube as well. And there's so many different routes and avenues. I mean, what would you say some of the biggest mistakes are that people are making? Obviously, number one, not going down the PR route. But is there any other mistakes that are attached to the work that you do that you see people making that actually you would try to make them or suggest that they avoid?
Yeah, there is. And because I'm a public relations purist. It's what I studied at university. It's what I've been doing for the last 22 years. So, I'm very particular about the way that I do things. And now we're in a really abundant age where anybody can access a journalist. They've created Facebook groups that you can join. There are platforms where you can get hold of contact details, which feels amazing. But the one skill you haven't learned is how to write a pitch. Yes. And we're all so used to writing our own kind of like social media content, marketing content, and it's very kind of story-led. It's very conversational. Whereas a pitch is actually, can you write what you want to say on the back of a fag packet, on a post-it note? Because less is more. And it's really a skill to learn, what is it that's going to make you really stand out in an inbox? Because so many people, even clients that I've worked with in the past, and I've kind of like trained them how to write a pitch, I'll be like, keep it as short and succinct as possible. And they send me back 8 paragraphs. And I'm like, okay, cool. This is the starting point. But now I'm going to show you how to pull out the best bits and focus on them first. Because at the end of the day, journalists, producers, they're creatives. They don't need an entire kind of war and peace of who you are and why you're in their inbox. Give them something that creates that spark for them to be like, oh, okay, yes, this is the angle I want to take, and this is what the audience needs right now. Because relevancy is so key in the press. And again, I think as business owners, so many of us are working with evergreen content that we may not believe that we have a place on the This Morning sofa, or we don't have a place in women's health or stylist, but it's because there's this belief of you're not enough or you're not well known enough. And I've had people say to me, do I have to be niche famous before working with you? And I'm like, no, because I help you become niche famous, because you've already got all the ingredients there. You've already got clients. Like, in that respect, you're already successful. This is now just about using the different platforms and the different channels to position you as the authority, so that you are the first name that people think of, and clients have already chosen to work with you before they book a call with you.
And for someone then who is potentially, that's never done PR, potentially doesn't know where to start, and they want to become niche famous, they want to become that obvious choice, they want to become the one, where should they start? Like, obviously reaching out to you, obviously. Of
course.
What is the first step though? What is that first step that people should do or focus on?
I would always take one step back and ask, why do you want to do this?
Nice. Yeah.
It's really easy. And again, I think we've seen a lot of this on social media over the years. Is it may be that our mentor or our peers or those that we look up to are being featured in the press, and they're posting it on social media and they're getting the applause and the praise. Now, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know if that piece of PR has opened the door to another private opportunity. But for me, it's like, I don't want you showing up just for the sake of it. I want it to make sense to the growth of your business. I want your PR pieces to help you increase your income and your profit. So for me, it's PR is like one cog in a really big wheel. Like, it has to work with your social media. It has to work with marketing. It has to be brought into your sales funnel, because then it doesn't become just a piece for clout that you post on social media and then forget about. Now, that's an asset. You know, if you're on a podcast, that's an asset. Don't just post about it once and forget about it. Use it. Like, literally make it work really hard for you. And then the evergreen system that you're building behind the scenes, it then becomes effortless. So then you've got more time to show up. And then you can speak on stage. You can look at ads. You've got like a real kind of like evergreen visibility engine working hard for you. So you just absolutely get to show up and shine as the queen you are.
Amazing. And then when, say, for example, they start gaining media attention, visibility through the route of PR, how should they then leverage it? Because I know you've just mentioned sort of maybe speaking on stages, getting, going that step further. Is there anything specifically that they can do to leverage that growth of their business and to really lean more into getting visible?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something I've just created because, like, 2024, I really took a step back in my business and had to question, who am I? Who do I want to work with? How do I want to work? And as part of that, I was getting increasingly frustrated with the fact that PR has always been seen as, you're raising your profile, you're building your credibility. But obviously, as a business owner, I also understand that these investments need to come with an ROI. Yeah. And that ROI at some point needs to link back to revenue. But if if PR wasn't built to track ROI, for me, it just felt that there's a disconnect. You know, it's 2026. It can't just be, oh, here, pay me thousands of pounds to get you featured in the press, as if that's the end goal. Like, that's not, that's just the start of a brand new chapter. That's you then opening the door to other opportunities, to being invited to industry events, to being invited onto podcasts, to being invited to speak on stage. So for me, it's about use the PR piece as the credibility anchor, and then use it strategically. So rather than saying, oh, I've been featured in so-and-so magazine, think, well, if I was featured in that magazine, where else are their readers? Are their readers also reading this publication? Are they listening to that type of podcast? Are they hanging out at this event? And then go there. Make sure you are in the room or you're in their vicinity, because that's what makes you memorable. That's what takes you from best kept secret to already chosen, because the PR piece just helps build that trust. Them following you on social media allows them to get to know you as a person. Then when it comes to them being like, it's absolutely 100% you, you're not having to spend time on a Zoom call convincing anyone to work with you. Like, they're showing up on that call already ready. You may not even need a sales call. It could just be a DM of, I'm ready to work with you. And the amount of times that I've had clients, and I've had this myself, where somebody has landed in my DMs and said, I'm ready to work with you. Can we have a conversation? And I didn't even know that we were connected on social media. Yeah, it's just, I think it's the magnetism you create when you really show up as yourself and you really share from a place of honesty and integrity. And that's what people want. And so many people are searching for the answer. You just need to make sure you're in front of them so that you're the one they choose to work with.
Brilliant. Absolutely. And completely agree with that. And I think, again, about being authentic, about being you, showing up as who you are, as that leader or as that authority. And I think a lot of people put emphasis on trying to find out what is the thing that I need to do. Is actually, if you openly, authentically show up as you anyway, that massively helps, because then you can lean into your own expertise, but you could also lean into your own experiences and story. And this leads on to one of the other things I really want to ask you, which is about storytelling. So with PR, I see it, and through my own, years of having a PR agent and sort of being in different publications, etc. I've always seen it as, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've always seen it as two sides. So you've got your story, your personal story, and then you've also got your expertise, and sort of that the kind of education expertise, etc. on the other side. Tell us a little bit more about this from from yourself, and why are both so important, and how can people really leverage both really to get featured and to be seen?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you've brought this up, because I feel like I've been quite vocal about it over the years, but probably not vocal enough. I very rarely actually focus on my client's personal story. Okay. Now, that's mainly because for me, I'm very much like, you're the authority in your industry. You've got all this expertise. We're going to position you as the expert first. And then we weave the personal story in strategically as and when it's going to make the most impact. Now, there are some people who you and I both know who their personal story has or is what has helped them get to where they are today. So if you're sharing your personal story because the reason you started your business was for this particular reason, absolutely, that's going to move the needle in your business. So for me, it's almost like meeting my clients where they're at. And what are you more comfortable sharing first? Because for me, everything has to make sense. There needs to be a purpose, otherwise it's pointless. And I'm not here to do pointless stuff with my clients. They're busy. They've got other things to do. They don't need to be chasing an interview with the Daily Mail if it's about a personal story that's not aligned with their business. So I've actually created this kind of like 4-pillar system, which looks at personal story, profile interviews, expert positioning, and products. And it's almost look at that quadrant and where do you feel more comfortable right now showing up? And if it's profile interviews, then that is what we will focus on first, which can be expert-led or it can be personal story-led. Most of my clients say, I want to go with the expert positioning. And it's like, okay, brilliant. And it may be that their personal story is still too raw. It may be that they want to protect other people in that experience and therefore don't want to talk about it, or it may just not be relevant. So for me, it's very much like you get to choose what you're known for. And if you had an experience in your past that isn't relevant to your business, we don't go there with the personal story. Because I think sometimes, and we've all seen it, we've all seen headlines in the Daily Mail and in the Sun and Take a Break magazine where people are literally bleeding all over the audience. And therefore other people believe that I've got to literally spill my guts to people I've never met before. And that makes me uncomfortable, especially because now there are so many negative comments and so many trolls in the comment section or on your Facebook feed when you're sharing it, that you're then almost like, hold on, was this worth it? Did that piece of publicity actually deliver what I needed it to? Or have I just allowed people to come in and share their opinions and actually make me feel worse? That wasn't the reason why I was sharing. Now I'm questioning the strategy behind it. So for me, I look at the person, the whole person, and what they feel comfortable doing in the moment.
Do you know, I think that's great that you've shared that. And I'm going to share something that will echo to an extent what you've just said, but from the perspective of a client with the personal story side of things, because I was approached and asked to share my personal story. This was probably only about 4 or 5 months ago. It was following on from my premiere in Leicester Square. So the story was out through my documentary, but it was told through the way I wanted it because I produced and created the documentary. But obviously I was approached by a very, very big name in print and they wanted to sort of feature and share my personal story, which I was happy to do to an extent. And the back and forths that we went through, and this was for months, Laura, months, and to the point where I just wasn't happy with certain things that they're wanting to get out of me that isn't relevant and never was relevant to the story that I want to share. So I actually decided to take a step away from that and not go down that route. Whereas all of the expert articles I've written or been interviewed for have been fantastic. And we've managed to get so much incredible yes, feedback, but also opportunities off the back of that, clients off the back of it, leads, conversations, into more interviews. Like that has been insane. So I really want to just share that live on the podcast now, because if anyone's wondering as well, I'm one of these people as well where I don't like the rags to riches stories. I don't like them in terms of the personal stories. And I think sometimes, like you said, unfortunately, it attracts trolls, it attracts nasty people and things. And I don't think anyone deserves that, regardless of their story. And you know, it's their story. It attracts that. And I think it's incredible when people can really lean into who they are as a leader. You know me, I absolutely love anything to do with iconic leadership, being the authority. So using your expertise and, like you said, interweaving elements of your story into that, perfect. It kind of gives you that biggest opportunity to be seen as that authority, but not have to open up the full vulnerability of your childhood, of where you lived, of how much you earned. Like, you don't need to share that. And I just wanted to share that on this podcast because I feel I really resonated with what you said there. And from a client's perspective, as someone who has used PR, that's my own experience. And I find that fascinating that you shared that.
Yeah. And I think it's brilliant that you were confident enough in knowing that this didn't align to say, do you know what, I'm going to walk away. Because again, I think a lot of us, and maybe this is because we're women, but we're almost fearful of pulling out because of how it makes us look. Yet the final published piece is going to have so much more of an impact on how people perceive us and how we're positioned in the market and the clients that we're going to attract. So actually saying no, and okay, the journalist might be pissed off for 5 minutes, but they've got a queue of people waiting to share their personal story. So it might be a bit like, oh, great, I feel like I've maybe wasted my time, but there's always somebody else who will gladly hold their hand up and take that position. So knowing what to say no to, I would say, is actually a bigger strength than knowing what to say yes to.
Yeah, absolutely. So storytelling is important. Your authority, your expertise is huge, and we can really leverage this and again go down the route of PR, because again, there's so many different publications, so many different podcasts, so many different places that people can get seen and heard and visible, right? Which is incredible. So as we're coming towards the end of this episode, let's give some of our listeners some really great tips, if you're happy to do so. If they're listening and they're feeling a little bit overwhelmed and they just don't really know where to start, how to move away from this best kept secret and really become niche famous. Again, they can reach out to you. All of Laura's links are in the show notes, ladies, so go and check her out. But are there any kind of final tips and things that you can give people to really get them started with this?
I would say, and this might come across a bit woo, but I'm running with it because, again, I think so many of us see PR as, oh, it's for people who are famous and it's for people who are more credible and more established than me. But actually, when you start to realize, a little bit like when you realize that sales is service, you showing up and sharing your story is service. It's allowing people to get to know you. It's you being relatable. And there could be, what I always say, if you show up and share your message and it resonates with one person, you've done your job. And that person may not buy from you, but they're going to tell all their friends about the impact that you made on their life. And their friend might tell their mum who needs you. Their mum is then going to come and start a conversation with you. So I often think that with PR, although I have created the Leverage Lab and the PR to profit method so that your PR is leading to increased income and profit, it's actually about being aware of what else is happening as a consequence. Like, is your message getting stronger? Are you attracting clients who don't need convincing? This is all the power of PR that you're missing because you're not tuned into what's happening. But also ask yourself the question, why do I want to do this? Because there will be interviews where a journalist, and I had this conversation yesterday with my niche famous clients. I said, a journalist who phones you for an interview are going to feel like a friend. It's going to feel like you're talking to a friend, and they do that because they want to get the details from you. And it's only when you see it published that you think, oh, I didn't realize they were going to publish that. If you're talking to a journalist, assume that everything you say is going to end up in print.
Yeah.
So it's almost really make sure, why are you doing this? Because if it's to appear to be someone that you're not, there's going to be a massive disconnect between how you show up in PR versus how you show up for your clients. Yes. And then ask the question, what do I want to be known for? And this is often, I either get really like top level vague answers like, oh, I just want to be known to help more women through menopause. And I'm like, come on, it's not. Let's dig a little deeper. Yes. And then the truth ends up coming out. It ends up being so much more impactful and emotional than they were probably prepared to go or expecting to go. But when you get to the crux of what do you want to be known for, it helps you keep the blinkers on and only focus on the opportunities that are actually going to deliver you to that destination. Everything else then is just noise. And, we all do things like, I've done interviews before with the press and I've been a bit like, well, all I've really done is help them out. It hasn't benefited me, but I did it in a moment where it felt like a good idea, but I know that's not going to move the business forward in any way. So it's just, I guess it's just always coming back to you. What do you want? What do you want to be known for? Who do you want to be known by? And then that just makes any kind of PR and visibility strategy so much easier to manage and maintain because you know what to say yes to, but also what to say no to.
Some great advice. Great advice, some great tips, and obviously a fantastic conversation. I know we could talk about this for hours. Such an incredible topic, and becoming niche famous. I love it. I absolutely love the focal point there, and obviously moving away from the best kept secret as well. Laura, it's been an absolute pleasure. Where can everyone find you and connect with you?
So if you want to have fun vibes and lots of niche famous related content, then on Instagram at PR with Perks. If you are interested in more of the kind of authority driven reputation side, then follow me on LinkedIn and subscribe to my newsletter Scene. So that is where I kind of dissect different things that have been happening in the media through my PR lens. So you get two sides of me, whichever platform you come to.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on to today's episode. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much. I've loved it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Actually I Can Female Entrepreneur podcast with me, your host, Kaylee Greenacre. If you are ready to build, grow and scale your dream six-figure or multi-six-figure business, then head to our website now for more information or connect with me on socials to see how you can create your dream business and dream life.